Welcome to video number 2 on our GBL mini course, and this video's topic is called 3 lenses for game-based learning. The idea of lens I originally got from a book called The Art of Game Design, which is a classic on game design written by Jesse Schnell, and it actually suggests 100 different lenses for looking at games in different ways. The idea of a lens is good because the default lens people often look at a game from is technology. And technology is nice and it can be dazzling, and you can sometimes go down the road of asking, what can this technology do, rather than the more important question is, what do I need to achieve in my learning? And the second question is, how could this technology enable me to do that? So we're going to look at 3 lenses for game-based learning that take away the temptation to be hypnotized by the technology. The first lens I call a learning dimension. Now, any game-based learning actually has 4 dimensions to it. The first dimension is the topic. For example, the game might be a game about running the sales in a major global automotive manufacturer. That could be the topic, or it could be change management, or it could be high-performing teams. So I'm going to say a little bit more about topic later, but that's the obvious part of a game. What's the topic? The second aspect of the game is, if you're playing the game in teams, then there will be a team dimension to the game. You'll have to approach the challenge as a team, and you will experience team dynamics, good and bad, in playing the game, irrespective of what the topic is. The third aspect of the game, and apologies for the alliteration, also starting with T, is the touch. And one of the great things about team-based games is, in my experience, the participants decide they're going to be on their best behavior, but within a couple of minutes they've totally forgotten that. The game sucks them in, and they behave as they would behave in real life. So the people who are bossy, guess what? They'll be bossy in the game. The people who stand back and are quiet and maybe don't speak their mind will be bossy in the game as well. And with good facilitation, you have a great opportunity to explore this, because these games can really be an observatory of human behavior. There's so many things, you just have to decide what are the things that are important to you. The final aspect of the learning dimension is what I call techniques. For example, decision-making techniques. You can learn in these games about decision-making techniques. You can learn the difference between a leading indicator, which is a warning of something going to happen, and a lagging indicator, often financial, which tells you about what's after the event, something has happened. So there are also various important management techniques that you can pick up. So these are the 4 dimensions. So this is the first lens, looking at a game. Topic, team, touch, and techniques. And that gives you a clear picture of what a game could be about, or what a game needs to be about. The second dimension is what I call learning modes. My experience of experiential learning is, if people come to spectate and very passively, they won't get much out of it. So the first kind of learning that's important for game-based learning is the planned learning, and needs to be built into the sessions, and I'll show you later on how to do that. People need to know what they're looking for. This is the planned learning. I would like to learn about this. The second aspect of learning is where somebody else shares something which is all part of the experience, and you can say, yeah, I'm going to learn that too. Then there's a quote about it's a wise person who learns from other people's mistakes. And a well-facilitated session, people should be learning not just directly but indirectly. And there's a third type of learning, which is maybe the most fun learning of the lot. It's called serendipitous learning. And serendipitous learning is what I call the money down the side of the sofa learning. You put your hand down, you're watching TV, and you find a pound coin. A great example of this is, I was running a game where the participants had to run a convenience store for 4 months in the morning, and we'd 12 teams, so it was a very busy game. We wanted people to look at the profitability of their different products in the store. So we handed out to the team doctored versions of the standard profitability report by store so that they could analyze profitability. And 10 of the teams said, what are these reports? We've never seen them before. And the game sponsor was speechless, because this was how the leadership team of these convenience stores were supposed to manage their stores. So that's serendipitous learning, and probably that was almost the biggest value the company got out of running that event. They realized that the management teams didn't use the basic reports for running the stores, and they were being successful, sometimes in spite of themselves. So that's learning modes. So that's very important as well if you think about the planned learning, the shared learning, and you can't plan for it, obviously, the serendipitous learning. The third lens I'd like you to consider is learning benefits. What are people going to get out of a game-based learning session? The first one is virtual experience. And there's things you can do in a simulation that are too difficult to do in real life. And I always think when I talk at conferences in this, I always ask the question, if a new airline appeared and they were cheaper than everybody else, amazing customer service, but they said we've saved some cost because we don't train our pilots using flight simulators, how many people would fly with those airlines? It's generally not a lot of people put their hands up. So there's things you can do in simulations that are too dangerous to do to the business, and that's a great use of simulation. The second aspect is social learning. If it's played in teams and there's some degree of experience in the teams, people can share their experiences. I tried this. Oh, right, I tried this. So there's great social learning. Organizations complain we don't know what we know, or we can't disseminate what we know, and playing a team game on an important topic is a great way to share experience, not just the participants, but also from the facilitators. The third issue in games, the third benefit of games, is teaching people to deal with dilemmas. And all my experience shows that the best performers in organizations are not the best decision makers, they're the best dilemma resolvers. A normal performer, a normal mortal, considers a dilemma as a problem, whereas top performers consider dilemmas as creative opportunities. And a dilemma is where you have two things and two values and you really want to do them both, but you can't. And that great scope in game-based learning for throwing real organizational dilemmas and real job dilemmas. And it's also a great way to manage the complexity of a game by focusing on the dilemmas that people will encounter and keeping everything else outside scope. The third thing you can do in a game very easily is you can put people under pressure, you can change the environment, make it very difficult, you can throw in wild cards. One of the things I like to do is unexpectedly announce that a deadline has come forward, maybe near the end of the game, all the kind of things that happen in the real world, and see how people deal with the pressure. And finally, the other thing games give you, if they're set up right, is I believe the best kind of game is a game that people find difficult but they succeeded in. If they find it's too difficult, they go away in a bad mood. If they find it's too easy, it's kind of demeaning. And where we've got the games just right, people feel a real sense of achievement in running the flour mill or running the enterprise successfully and nearly hitting their targets or slightly overachieving their targets. And the feedback we get 3 months later is quite common. People have got more confidence and more ambition. So these are the kind of benefits you can get from game-based learning, but you need to decide what's appropriate to your leadership development program and what are you looking to achieve. Now, I said I was going to talk a little bit more about topics. This color wheel is quite interesting. This represents the 12 most common leadership topics that we get asked to deal with in games. So it's a nice little graphic, but it's also a way you can actually assess yourself. Say, for example, take change management. and ask yourself, when a change management issue arises unexpectedly, how well do I deal with it? And if you can say you always deal with it well, or you usually deal with it well, or you sometimes, or you rarely, or you never. So it's a great way of having a discussion about competence levels. And it's also important to focus learning, because learning can also often get hung up on the intervention. But at the end of the day, the learning is really about improving people's specific skills. And this is kind of a nice little device to do it. So that's all I really want to say in terms of the lenses I'm going to give you to make sure you look at game-based learning, but not blinkered through the technology. The next course, or the next part of the course, we're going to look at the L in game-based learning and the learning process around game-based learning.